Well, welcome. We are back with more information about that web-based ASII. In our previous presentation, we focused on the use of the ASII primarily with narrative passages. What we'd like to point out is that sometimes it's important to compare and contrast a student's performance with narrative passages and that of information. And there are certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. However, you can have the information passages, but when it comes to the recapitulation record, you can't combine them. Why? You have two separate ones. Here's what you see when you go to the recapitulation viewing. You will have either narrative or information. So if you're comparing or contrasting, you will end up with two recapitulation records. So let's look at how that will work. We go to our Thoughtful Literacy website, and what we're going to do is we are going to sign in as you normally do, putting in your email, sending it in, and then verifying that it's you. We're going to the ASII online preview. All right. This time I'm going to have Susie, who is also 10. Whoops, she's at 4th grade. She's 10, and her birthday is, her testing day is 6/18, and I'll put in my name. I'm ready now to go and put in the flash. So I started here at 20 for second. I have 20 for third. But when I got to fourth, we dropped to 17. All right? And fifth, we dropped all the way down to 14. So we stopped. We're going to go to 3rd grade. That was the highest level at which she had 100 on the flash. So we had half a score for 3, and we had a error, a 0 for 9, and full for 10. This was done orally, and we had 2 miscues maintaining, meaning none that violated, but we did have 3 self-corrections and no non-words. So I'm not going to do the retelling help because we already guided you through that. So we're putting all the data in there for her 3rd oral. We move now to silent. And this time, what we had is our comprehension scores, and our retelling was 3. We have nothing here because we know that that was the oral and we read silently. So when I go to look at the recapitulation record, we see that it's working. I go to Susie narrative right here, okay? And I look here and I see she has a score of 85. Now I have to go back to my narrative passages, and I'm going to put 3rd grade for her instructional level, all right? And then I'm ready to go to see how she'll do with information. So I click the information passages. I came to the first story, and she read this orally. And here we have inputted her data. She had a retelling of 3. She had 1 miscue that maintained. She had 2 that violated. And she had 4 self-corrections, but no non-words. So we're ready now to go to the second third grade. And this time it was done silently. So we look at what we have here, input the data, input her retelling score. Now, data is all put in for Susie for both her narrative and her recapitulation. So notice, you're not combining into one. Here is my PDF for narrative, and we see that that score is instructional. Let's look at what we have when we looked at the information. And here we have 95. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to my information, and for third grade I have independent. So I can produce 2 separate recapitulation records. The narrative will show instructional at third, but look at her information. So now I've got some powerful information here. When I looked at the difference, I'm going to zoom up just a bit so you could see it. I have that average of 85 when I'm looking at the narrative, and down here I can analyze my data at her instructional level. However, when I look at her recapitulation record for information, guess what we found? We found out she's independent. So now I'm ready to make instructional judgments based on her performance on both narrative and informational. But keep in mind, not into one recapitulation record, 2 separate. Isn't that exciting? I'm sure you will find some interesting data as you compare and contrast students reading when they're reading informational with when they are reading narrative. And that brings us to the end of this PowerPoint.